Hey everybody, I've recently opened up a Redbubble page and I'm starting to do iPhone cases based on comments below, but more on that in a minute. What you see here is those are all pictures that I'm going to be used for textured reference, and the really colorful crustacean there is going to be basically used as a palette. And what you see on my canvas there is that's the template to use, and the darker blue section in the middle that's the part that's going to be the main part of the image, and the rest is the other border surrounds the sides of the iPhone case, and the rest is just extra stuff, but it won't be visible on the case itself. Uh, so, like I said before, this is going to be for sale on my Redbubble page, and I've decided to do like a series of these videos where I work on an image based on comments here on YouTube. So comment below if you want me to design something based on one of your suggestions, or on my Google Plus page. This particular one, um, somebody had left a comment on a Medusa painting I did, said comparing me to Giger, saying that I was the painting was kind of Giger-like, just with a little bit more color involved. And I decided to go with that. I mean, I'm a big fan of Giger's work, and so I decided to start doing this painting, and very Giger inspired. I think I had like a whole page of Giger stuff up at the same time, just as inspiration while I was working on this. And where you see it now, it just ends up somewhere completely different, and it's interesting watching it play back now, because how many different changes it goes through. And as I'm watching, I'm like, oh, I could have taken it this direction, or I could have taken it that direction, because I have all these crazy ideas, and I just love working on stuff. And I change my mind so often. Like, you'll see me try stuff and it doesn't work, so then I'll try something else and then it doesn't work, and then I just keep going back and forth until eventually I have a finished piece. And I think this piece in total took about 6-7 hours, which originally I was not planning on spending nearly that amount of time on it, but it's just the way it happened. I was having so much fun doing it. And so I'll suppose I might as well talk about what I'm doing there. Um, you see me there just trying different things. I started working primarily on the left side of the image, and then I will periodically flip that part over to the right. I really wish Photoshop had symmetry features similar to the way Sketchbook Pro does, because I love that feature. So I could just work on the one side, the other side just duplicates itself. Because I do really like symmetry, but then I'll later go back and try and break the symmetry a little bit. Because things that are too symmetrical don't really work. And there are one of the rare times I'll switch to a textured brush. I have a huge collection of textured brushes, but I very rarely use them except for the background, and this was no exception to that. There I'll go through and do details. I decided to change up that mouth looking thing, and I don't know, those circle things you see up on the side, so I'm going to start working on them in a bit, and I think I end up getting a texture of a light bulb for that that I took directly from it, and I put in those circle things. You're going to see me do that in a minute, but I end up getting rid of them completely, as you'll see later on in the clip. And actually, I don't, there, see, that's like I said, that was the light bulb thing, and I don't know, I think it was just competing with the eyes themselves too much. And a little while later, I'm going to completely change that and get rid of it, because it just, I don't know, for whatever reason, I was no longer happy with the way it was going. And there you see me flipping it and trying to keep it mostly symmetrical. Some of the stuff like right there, I'm not doing that. I'm just painting directly on the layers. But yeah, it's weird the amount of stuff that does change. Like, I don't know. When I'm working at a piece, I have so many different ideas, and I'm not afraid to experiment, because it's only Photoshop. Anything that can be done can be usually easily undone. Um, I don't really work on too many layers. I've said that previously. This is all mostly a layer right above the figure layer. And I think at one point I accidentally merged an effect that I had on the background to darken it up. And later on I had to mask that out and get rid of it, because that was a screw up on my part. But yeah, I mean, even looking at it now, there's various different points at it that I want to take in a completely different direction. And it's one of the great things about art, is that you can do that. I'm constantly inspired by just watching my own stuff playing back in front of me. I'm like, wow, I could do this or that, or I could have seen completely different directions it could have gone. And I think that's great, because it's good to be constantly inspired like that. And I'm always inspired by seeing other artists. But when I'm watching my own stuff being played back, it's kind of weird because like it's slightly disconnected because even though I did that all and watching it back, it's almost like I'm watching somebody else do it, and it's just strange. There you see me trying to. I want to make the thing pop a little bit, but then I realized it ended up being way too dark, so I do have to I had to lighten it up. Because one of the things that was hard to keep in mind while working on it is that I'm working on it fairly big. I mean, I have a 21-inch Cintiq that I was working it on, but it's for an iPhone case, so that's really tiny, relatively speaking. So I did have another image, duplicate on my iMac, opened up so I could see it smaller, and then I realized it was just way too dark. Um, there you see me adding the nose and those secondary nostrils. I don't know, I kind of like the idea at first, but they do eventually get completely covered up. As do some of those blue glowy things up top. Those will get covered up, but I think I bring them back in some form. Let's see. Oh, I saw some sort of like skull figure up top there, and I really liked it. So there you see me enhancing it and trying to find a place of where I could put that, because I really liked just the way it naturally formed itself. I thought it looked pretty cool, and that becomes a pretty significant part of the piece eventually. And there you see me, I just opened up an alien because the form of the top of the dome there was reminding me of a piece I had done previously, and I wanted to get that kind of lighting effect in there. So I just took an old piece and added it directly into it. There you see me adjusting that side thing because I don't know. I tried this out, and again, that's another direction that I went and spent some time on, and eventually I just completely get rid of it because it just wasn't quite working. Yeah, so it's another thing that, I tried, and I don't know, it just wasn't quite working. And there you see there, like I said before, I was, took out that nostril. It just wasn't quite working the way I wanted. And even what I'm putting there now will get covered up later. Because when I shrunk it really down, it wasn't popping at all. All that detail area, you just really couldn't see. It just wasn't going to work. Especially on the dark background, it just, although it looked really cool up large, when it was shrunk down, it just way too much detail. You can't really see it. So I do end up changing that as well. And see there, I still want to incorporate the green dome-ish thing, and I do. And I like the look of that other piece, so I cut that, threw on a different layer, and tried to see how I could work that back into it. Because that's another thing. When I'm working on a piece like this, usually it happens when I'm working on pieces that start from textured photographs I took that I just randomly throw together. I tend to see so much stuff in things, and I'll work on a part, and then I'll like that part, but it's not working where it is, so I'll take it apart and I'll move it around, and I keep working like that until eventually I get to a point I'm happy with, or either I'm completely happy with it, or I just don't want to mess around with it anymore, and I just gotta eventually done. It's got to be done. Because even when I'm walking around looking at almost anything, I can see so many things going on, and that's constantly going on in my head. Oh, I can do this with that, and I can do that with this, and it can be overwhelming at times. Like I have this awesome grapevine that's right outside of my house, and it has so many awesome textures. And I look at it every day, and I'm like, oh, this would be great in this picture, and that would be perfect for that. So I mean, I have a ton of texture files based off of that, but finding the time to actually do anything in a more constructive manner, that it can be very time consuming because I only have so many hours in the day where I could work on stuff. But it's good to have that all back in the visual library and focusing on stuff. So that's why I like doing stuff based off of user comments and whatnot, because since it helps me narrow down what I'm going to work on, because I do have a whole shit ton of my own ideas, but focusing on which of the bazillion ideas. I'd much rather work on other people's projects and use that in a more focused manner. I find it to be much more productive. So I like doing stuff based on user suggestions and whatnot. That's why if I'm going to do like say an acrylic painting or whatnot, I'll say, hey, what should I paint? Because it's another reason that I like doing caricatures of people or speed paintings of people, because then the subject's already there. So that aspect of it, I don't necessarily have to worry about. So I like free range in a narrow area. I find that to be much more productive, or I could easily spend forever just re-tweaking stuff and playing with it. There you see me covering up that nose part again that I had already covered up once before. And I think that's pretty much how it'll stay until the end. I might tweak it a little bit more. I know this commentary is all sorts of disjointed. I'm like all over the place. I'm like both. But, I mean, that's really how I speak. So maybe one of these days I'll get more focused in what I say and write it down and whatnot. But right now I'm just literally watching this video and just going off the top of my head. I probably should be more formulated in what I'm saying or whatnot. But I don't know. It's just, that's not how I am. Even when I was writing in school, it was kind of all over the place. I mean, I'd stay generally on topic, but I'd ramble a lot. There you see me working on the tongue and then duplicating it for the other side. And there's the glow that I put in to react. Because if I'm going to have that bright source of light there, I want to make sure that affected the other stuff in the area. Even though the lighting is, just made up. It's not like there's any actual light source that's specific. But, I want to have some semblance of a light source there. Let's see. That was another problem I was having through part of this, is that I wasn't sure what was ahead of what. Because I like things to have some sort of realism to them, even if they're complete made-up fantasy weird stuff like this. I like to, have some sort of form to it. And that, in this one, I was never quite sure, like, the circle things that were on the side earlier that I ended up covering up with those spirally things. I was never sure if those were in front of, like, the cheeky area there, or, like, around the center mouth, or behind, off to the side. I was never quite sure which was in front of the other, and I don't know. It's kind of still not. Alright, there you see me, I'm starting to work on the border there. And the top part section there, that goes around the camera. And then, so I make this funky, cool-looking design, and I don't know, I kind of like the way it came out. And then I use the same basic design for the entire border. I do a lot of cutting and pasting, so I have to keep duplicating my work, because most of that's not even going to be seen, because that's just for the sides of the case. So most of that is just, not even going to be viewed anyway. Like only a fraction of it might actually be seen on the case. Which, when you click on the link below and check out my Redbubble page, you can see exactly what it looks like on the case. And I was pleased with the way it looked. I mean, it looks better on the case than here with the within the border, where I have to guess what it's going to look like. So yeah, that's what I'm working on now. I continue to work on the border, and then I'll flip it over and use the same thing for the top. I was once again trying to position everything and trying to have it centered, but the template itself is kind of off-center, which I thought was kind of odd, but it is. So at one point I was going to go through and completely go over that whole border, even though it's like duplicated. I use the same edges. I was going to go through and tweak it and make sure it was all like, more unique. But I decided not to do that because it didn't really matter. There you see me working more on the background, darkening up so the figure pops and adding more texture to it. And there what you see me doing there is that chin wasn't popping. It was like disappearing into the background when I looked at the small version of it. So I went in through and reworked a little bit so you can more see it, so it pops out more. That's the chin, because it looked like there was, I don't know, it just wasn't working. There you see, I did a quick curves adjustment. That's what you saw there. See, there you see me. I had started tweaking that. And I'm like, I want to put my signature in it in a viewable spot, but tie it in to the piece itself. So there you see me working in that background design, so it follows the form of my signature, which I think works pretty cool. I kind of like how that turned out. I think at one point, I think I might try doing that textured work down below, and then I decided, yeah, I think I gave up on that. Didn't like that yet. So this piece is just about finished. And there you see the finished image, and thank you for watching, and go ahead and subscribe if you liked what you saw. Thank you, bye.